Tingyun is one of the best, if not the best, offensive support character in Honkai Star Rail. But how good is she really? With other great 4-star supports, is she still worth building? Let's start with her kit. Tingyun is an attack buffer who essentially multiplies your hypercarry's attack stat by up to 55% by using up to 27% of Tingyun's attack. Therefore, you pretty much have to stack as much attack on Tingyun as possible through her relics. On top of this, when the buffed ally attacks, this will deal an additional lightning damage equal to 44% of Tingyun's attack. But you've probably heard of all of this before, right? So how does she compare to other supports like Pela and Asta? Asta is a similar support to Tingyun, where when she hits an enemy, all allies gain an attack boost of up to 15% at max talent level. This can be stacked up to 5 times with a maximum attack buff of 75%. In addition to this huge attack buff, her ultimate increases the speed of every ally by 53 for 2 turns at max level. So while being such a great buffer as well as weakness breaker with her skill, why isn't she regarded higher on the tier list? Well, she comes with a couple set of cons, mainly her ultimate. In order to get 5 stacks of a buff, 5 enemies must be hit by her. However, her skill only hits 4 enemies per turn, which makes it impossible to get the max. You get 2 turns to apply the buff, which counteracts this con. However, even so, any sort of status effect that would interrupt her turn prevents the maximum buff from being achieved. Pair this with the fact that her ultimate takes ages to charge, makes her automatically lagging behind in terms of buffing. But how about Pela? She has sort of gone under the radar as she's been overshadowed by her much more popular sister Tingyun. Pela is a defense shredding machine, as she not so much buffs your hypercarries, instead works as more of a debuffer. Her skill is great as it dispels any buffs that the enemy may have, as well as applying a debuff. While the skill is great, you don't have to use it in order to find value. In fact, her basic attack applies the same debuffs without the buff dispel, making her excellent for skill point economy. On top of this, her ultimate reduces the defense of every enemy on the field, which benefits the entire team's damage output. Now, while she has all of this in her kit, she doesn't come without her drawbacks. Pela has arguably the lowest survivability of the supports mentioned in this video, as her defense base stat is the lowest in the entire game. So while she provides all these great debuffs, if she's not even alive to apply them, how valuable is she really? Fortunately, there are other great defensive supports to help her out, but this is a huge con that I've noticed while using her, especially in the early game. Now, to compare the 3, I don't think Asta matches the value that the other 2 bring to the table, mainly because her buffs are not instant and can be inconsistent. However, that does not mean you should stop using her. It just means she's not the best investment early game and probably shouldn't be used at any game. Moving on to the big 2. While I've stated that Pela's main drawback was her survivability, I found that literally every other support has that problem. It's just that Pela has it the worst. Therefore, you probably have to build more defense or HP on her. In terms of skill economy, I strongly believe Pela easily outclasses Tingyun here, as she applies debuffs that benefit the team, while not using any skill points. Tingyun, on the other hand, just doesn't have that in her kit, as she's mainly there to just apply buffs every 3 turns and build her ultimate. However, if you look at the overall buff, defense reduction on one enemy doesn't match an attack buff on a hypercarry, especially if it's used on someone like Tingyun, who has massive AoE, or Seal, who gets many turns, which can be amplified with Tingyun. So for the skill, I have to give it to Tingyun. Now for the ultimate, this is where it becomes more evenly matched. Tingyun grants the ally affected by her ultimate a 56% damage boost at max level, as well as regenerating 50 energy for them, while Pela's ultimate reduces the defense of enemies by 42% at max level. So there's a clear difference here, but I do believe that defense shred is more valuable compared to an attack percent buff, because obviously you can build attack percent on your hypercarry, but can't really build defense shred on your hypercarry. So having that defense shred is more valuable here, in my opinion.